Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 3 articles in this particular episode, and there will be 3 today. Um, I'm going to call it the trifecta of news. This episode, I've got 3 very interesting articles in it. All of these URLs are in the description of the video for your perusal if you need to do further research or want to check out any information that's in them. Sometimes there's some videos and stuff that's kind of interesting. But this first one, it's off of WND.com, and it says U.S. Christians urged to prep for terror. And here's how it reads. It says, it's nothing less than a declaration of religious war. The Islamic State has reportedly put out American churches in all 50 states. And with attacks on churches and Christmas markets dominating the headlines in Europe, threat American Christians can afford to ignore. Pastor Carl Gallups, a former lawman, experienced and the author of Be Thou Prepared for Persecution in Times of Trouble, says the threats coming from Islamic terrorists are sad realization of some of his darkest fears. Or glaring example of the demonic wickedness that now controls our nation, he told WND. I think it is indicative of the demonic outpouring that the Bible proclaims would be a definitive marker of the days before the return of Christ. This kind of targeted, hate-filled threat towards Christians is unprecedented in America. It will grow worse unless drastic measures are taken, and soon. Of course, only the hand of the Lord can ultimately hold back this kind of scenario from becoming an absolute plague upon our land. Many people, from pastors to politicians, have been warning our leaders, media, and citizens that these kind of threats were coming our way and could one day be reality in the United States. Warnings fell largely on deaf ears because of the politically correct mantra of the xenophobia and bigotry. We were called conspiracy theorists, haters, and worse. Yet those labels could not have been further from the truth. The truth is that insane political correctness may indeed be used by Satan as the undoing of the United States internal security that we have so long enjoyed. Many of us saw it coming. We sounded the alarm. Days are here. Gallups wrote, Be Thou Prepared, as a guide for Christians to defend themselves and learn how to implement what he called common sense safety measures. An enforcement professional who implemented a security ministry within his own congregation outlined the steps he believes each church should take in an interview with WND. Things that any church, large or small, can do quickly, inexpensively, and without a lot of fanfare, he explained. Security teams, the more eyes and ears the better, can be assembled with specifically assigned areas of patrol. Basic communication procedures, evacuation plans, and vulnerable areas, protocol, children's areas, etc. can be established. With adequate financial resources, even more detailed measures can be employed. Consider video surveillance, burglar alarm systems, panic alarms, and strobe warning lights, and monitorized security patrols of the perimeter and property. Also, most sheriff's offices and police departments allow for the securing of their offices, reasonable charge for security presence, or specific patrol during designated hours. And there are many more things that can be done, depending upon each church's location, risk assessments, and specific needs. Again, my book outlines this in greater detail. Even before the emergence of Islamic terrorism as major force in world affairs, churches have often been a target of terrorist-inspired causes. One of the worst attacks on a church in history was the St. James Church massacre, in which 11 people were killed and 58 at a church in Cape Town, South Africa. Perpetrators were members of the Azan People's Liberation Army, an African nationalist group, and were only driven off when one of the congregants, produced a firearm and returned fire on the attackers. His experiences in shouting back the duty of self-defense. Gallup urges Christians to remember such attacks and prayerfully consider what they would do if their peaceful Sunday gathering became a deadly confrontation. Sadly, the days of simply showing up for church in America without any real thought of target attack while we worship are mourn. We live in intensely prophetic times as well as potentially hazardous times, even in the United States. Church to come to this sober realization and discern the times in which we live. We don't need to be like these false prophets of Jeremiah's day who proclaim peace and safety, chastised by the Lord for their blatant ignoring of the biblical signs that were all around them. On the other hand, Gallup said fear and paranoia is also not a solution. Instead, he suggests Christians simply follow the common sense steps outlined in Be Thou Prepared, as well as look to the heroes of the Bible. And one of the greatest role models of his time, said Gallup, could be a great wall builder of his age. We simply need to do as Nehemiah directed his people in Nehemiah chapter 4, explained the pastor. While you are doing the work of the Lord's kingdom, be prepared to defend your families and your homes. God honored and protected Nehemiah's kingdom workers because they committed the work to the Lord in prayer and then took common sense measures to defend and protect themselves while working. Get to scroll up here a little bit. Yep, okay, that was the end of that article. And the next one, if I can get it to cooperate, here we go, is off of Dennis Michael Lynch. And this one is entitled, Harvard to Begin Islamic Law Fellowships. Harvard University Director of Islamic Legal Studies Program, Intisar Rab Fellowship Program, comes just in time for the start of the Trump administration. Harvard Law School will begin a series of paid fellowships in the 2017-2018 school year, which is, according to them, aimed at influencing public discourse beyond Sahara. Reb stated their ultimate goal is building a community of Islamic law scholars in the academy, as well as informing policy and media discourse about Islam law. Will receive $5,000 a month, and their mission will be to develop policy papers that will include commentary on recent cases or other Islamic law sources. Harvard has a massive digital library on their college portal called Shahara Source, with 25 editors from 21 different institutions, 6 outside the U.S., and 1,711 primary sources from 18 different countries. The data includes 902 cases, 541 legislative acts, and 251 fatwas. Their Shahara Research Fellowship Program will allow their scholars to do more research on policy-related aspects of Islam law, provide them with a workspace and Harvard Law Library privileges, along with their $5,000 a month stipend. The school is looking for minority applications, especially from women and citizens of all countries. The program goals are to promote research in migration and refugee studies, environmental law, climate change, minority rights, animal welfare, and human rights. The article that I have in this episode is off of WND, and it says, Keith Ellison is Muslim Brotherhood operative. If we can get this one to scroll up here. It's about wore out. Here we go. Well, started to scroll up. There we go. Evidence is mounting in support of the allegation that U.S. Representative Keith Ellison, the nation's first Muslim congressman and leading candidate for chairman of the Democratic National Committee, is a Muslim Brotherhood operative. As mouthpiece for subversive organization, which Congress is a terrorist organization, nothing Ellison said should be taken at face value, experts on the Brotherhood told WND. I could speak before Muslim Brotherhood affiliated groups like the Islamic Society of North America and later claimed he has no relationship with the group. In fact, he was scheduled to address the annual convention of another Brotherhood offshoot, the Muslim Society, or MAS, on Tuesday, but his name has suddenly disappeared from the list of convention speakers, reports the investigative project on terrorism. But Ellison has more to explain about his past than a few speaking engagements in front of a dubious organization. The same group that he was scheduled to address, the MAS, paid for Ellison's December 2008 pilgrimage to Mecca. MAS has been called a national security threat, which has ties to the Brotherhood, as documented in a report Monday by the IPT. MAS paid $13,500 for Ellison's pilgrimage, called the Hajj, to Mecca. It is listed as one of more than a dozen groups spawned by the Muslim Brotherhood in documents filed by the FBI during the Holy Land Foundation trial in Dallas in 2007 and 2008. Try that again. That trial, despite its unprecedented success in rooting out American Muslims involved in financing the terrorist group Hamas, was shut down by former Attorney General Eric Holder soon after the Obama administration took office in 2008. Get this page to cooperate with me a little bit here. Okay, Chris Gabaz, a national security consultant and vice president of Understanding the Threat, he told, well, we can get it to hold still, pages jumping, that the concerns about Ellison's past are beyond disturbing. After my testimony before Congress this summer, his office actually confirmed that he has spoken at Muslim Brotherhood conferences held by the Islamic Society of North America. So there is no secret there, said Gabaz, co-author of an investigative book based on documents he was able to secure while working as an undercover intern for the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. On the Muslim Mafia Project, Ellison would do weekly projects with CAIR, weekly strategy meetings at CAIR's headquarters in D.C. And then he's got some ties to the MAS as well. So he covers the whole gambit from the ISNA to the CAIR. All are affiliated with the Brotherhood. Boy, don't that sound like a big bowl of alphabet soup. Let's see if we can get it to scroll up here a little bit more. There we go. It says that brings us back to the question, given ties to an international, on this scrolling business, National Brotherhood, whose stated goal is the spread of Sharia across the globe, taken at his word when he speaks to the media on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. In fact, everything about Ellison's public life, his support for far-left causes such as same-sex marriage and abortion on demand through the later stages of pregnancy, might be, at best, he is a confused individual who doesn't square his spiritual life with his political stances, which seems to be at odds with each other, unless you understand Islamic law. When his life is inspected under the lens of Sharia, maybe Keith Ellison, enigma after all, says a former Islamic expert of the Muslim Brotherhood. To understand Ellison, you have to understand Sharia, says Dr. Mark Christian, who converted to Christianity in 2005, came from Muhammad Abdullah, leaving behind a comfortable life in Egypt as part of a prominent Muslim family. Get to scroll up a little bit more. Lord have mercy, that hamster's having trouble tonight, isn't he? Says, so does Sharia allow you to accept some stuff that is not Islamic in order to further the political agenda of Islam? Absolutely it does, Christian told WND. teaching that's called the Code. This doctrine, based on Quran 2:173, applies to one's personal life as well. If somebody lives outside his native country, is not Muslim, say Europe or United States, back when they still were European and American, it was allowed for Muslims to eat meat that was not halal and to fast in ways they are not supposed to fast, Christian said. This is Sierra again giving them latitude under the code of necessity. Christian said American politics and Americans in general don't understand Islamic law and thus are easily deceived. It is put upon any Muslim to make the decision to abide or not abide with any Islamic rules or regulations based on the cause of Islam, he said. If it's to protect the life of a Muslim or to protect the person himself, or you have the right to make changes to the rules if you are going to protect yourself or your family or another person who is part of your brotherhood as a Muslim in this non-Muslim country. And advance the cause of Islam itself in this society. So Ellison can proudly advocate for LGBT rights to the point where the far left.org named him one of its 11 most pro-gay U.S. representatives. Cry from Muslim leaders. They know without even saying the words that he is doing this to further the cause of the Islam, actually cheer for him and help him out, says Christian. Omaha, Nebraska-based Global Faith Institute to help Christian and Jews understand Islam. That's because pandering to left-wing voters, voting blocs like the homosexual lobby helps re-elect America's first Muslim congressman term after term after term. And that's a good thing for Islam, Christian says, giving it legitimacy in what was a predominantly Christian nation. Sharia law not only allows this, but encourages it, he said. And we're trying to get her to scroll up some. Dr. Christian said he is himself a living example of the law of necessity. To Christianity, the rules of Sharia say he should be killed as an apostate. Endured threats and harassment from the Muslim community in Omaha, he lives on. As an apostate is not encouraged in a land that is not Islamic because it might give Islam a bad name and may not further the cause of Islam in America while the Muslim population is still small, he said. President Obama is treated the same way, even more delicately, in fact, as the slightest rebuke thrown his way for denying the religion of his birth. If Obama is truly a Christian, as he claims to be, that would mark as an apostate. According to Sierra, there is no way for a son of Muslim father to avoid being Muslim, says Christian. There's only one exception, if he qualifies for the law of necessity. Judging on that, Christian said, Obama's father was a Muslim, but you have not heard any condemnation by the Muslim that Obama is not practicing Islam and says he's Christian. Why? Because such condemnation would harm Islam. And the president himself is very helpful to the Islamic cause in America. So you'll never hear any Muslim say Obama is an apostate and someone should kill him. Christian said the code of necessity, as applied by Sierra law, is the key to understanding Islam. And now the page jumping, okay. In a non-Islamic society in America, it is to put the sheep's clothes and deceive most Americans as are, he said. This is why the Native Americans and especially the politicians have been deceived for years by Islam and the Muslim Brotherhood. If people realized the fact that Islam, try it again, it's jumping on me. About the time I think I have it ironed out, it jumps again. The fact that Islam is a political movement, it would solve many problems we are facing in the West because Islam and its deceptions, Christian added. or the allowing of Muslims to be untruthful is just part of the larger Quranic principle called necessity. Taqiyya is a tool to cover for yourself in times of necessity, he explains. There are three things that justify it: protection of another Muslim's life, protection of oneself, and protection of Islamic movement. In fact, it is not only that you are allowed to do that, this is actually praised because it's looked at as an act of jihad when you are doing this. Taqiyya is found in Quran 16:106, also in 3:28. That is what Shahir teaches as taught by Muhammad, the founder of Islam. He practiced taqiyya, practiced deceiving. He practiced all of that in his military career and his political leadership career, Christian said. Not just a military leader, he was also a political figure, the model for Ellison and any Muslim politician. He made treaties, he negotiated with others, and the military was just a part of this structure, Christian said. The way he negotiated with his hometown of Mecca when he was about to conquer it, he married one of the girls of the city, so over without spilling any blood. He was able to deceive them into believing things that were not true. Has got it all wrong in America, he said. If Christianity doesn't change its response to Islam, it's going to be silenced by Islam, says Dr. Christian, who penned an op-ed on this topic Thursday in Washington Times titled Terrorizing Christmas. His response to Islam should not be to make Islam comfortable here in the West, trying not to offend by withholding from Muslims. And it's jumping. Okay. The hard truth of the gospel, he said, but before even the gospel can be shared, Christian Muslims, how the religion is built on lies, he said. Christians are the most Americans, he told WND. They are the ones who don't understand and don't want to understand the danger that is sitting on the corner trying to devour every church and every Christian on earth. Look at the life of Muhammad if you want to understand the driving force behind Islam. The very prophecy of Muhammad is that Jesus will come back not to lift up the church, but to destroy the church, he said. This is the prophecy of Muhammad. So you are talking about the complete opposite of what Christianity teaches. But Christians are the most evil of all because they are trying their best to do nothing in front of danger, which is something Jesus never did. He spoke truth to power. He was not afraid of a cross or hiding behind the cross. We are told to be on the cross and to make disciples of nations. We're told to face danger and to face our own cross on a daily basis. So if Keith Ellison or try this again. So is Keith Ellison a dangerous man? Muslim Brotherhood, which has been declared a terrorist organization by Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the UAE, and is possibly going to be declared a terrorist organization by the United States if a bill now sitting in Congress gets passed under the leadership of a new president. Dr. Christian did not hesitate when asked the question. Absolutely, he's a Muslim Brotherhood operative. His relationship with the Islamic Society of North America and the CAIR tell us he is. In fact, and these two groups are the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's not denying his relationship and association with them whatsoever. He is a Muslim brother. So how is he able to run for the highest office in the Democratic Party, chairman of the DNC? I'm naive enough to believe that lipstick on a pig does not make it a pig. So there you have three very interesting articles, and I'll have some more interesting articles. If you like what we're doing, give it a thumbs up, share it around, be sure you subscribe, click the little bell on the subscribe button, check the box so that you get the email alerts when I do shows. So